All right, hello, y'all. Welcome to Busting Out of the Traditional Recruitment Model with Josh and me, Megan. We'll introduce ourselves in just a second, but before we do that, again, a reminder to complete the form that Marissa has in the chat. The things that are coming up next, so the next things you need to decide on are the topical roundtable about innovative leadership, friendship, and service events, a roundtable for quarter term schools, and then an educational fellowship on one-on-one. So go ahead and make sure you're filling out that form as we go. Another quick housekeeping tip as we roll into this presentation is we recognize that different universities use different language and have different parameters for both recruiting and pledges or new members and that period of time where their pledges are new members. For the purpose of this training, we'll use the terms pledges and pledging, as well as like new member education. But as stated in the APO bylaws, please use the language and parameters that your university requires or recommends. We don't have time to do the spiel every time we say recruitment or pledging, but please keep that in mind and make sure with your chapter and on your campuses, you're using the words that apply to you. So our agenda today, we're gonna do a welcome and some introductions. We're gonna talk about the reasons to modify a traditional recruitment week, some suggestions on how to alter the model. We're going to talk about ongoing recruitment procedures. We're going to introduce a new model, and then we'll have a quick closeout. So we're going to try to move through all those things pretty quickly. And with that, welcome, and we'll roll into intros.
Great. So hi, everyone. My name is Josh Bainson, and I pledged at Delta Kappa at Emory University in fall of 2014, and I graduated just about 2.5 years ago. While I was active in APO, I served in a variety of leadership roles, including as a recruitment chair and then eventually as chapter president. Now I reside in New York, and I'm a member of the National Membership Committee's recruitment team, in addition to my day job as a marketing manager.
Thank you for that introduction, Josh. You'll see in the middle here a picture of the glorious time that Josh and I both spent on the executive board of Delta Kappa. I, too, am from Delta Kappa, pledged in fall 2011 at Emory University, where I met Josh and learned lots of things. While I was there, I was a lot of leadership roles, including Rush Chair, Fellowship Vice President, and President. Since graduating, I now work for an education nonprofit in New Orleans, where I do a lot of educating peer groups and just general nonprofit management type stuff. And I, too, am on the National Membership Committee, and I run the Education Task Force or Subcommittee. So we're going to jump now into reasons to modify a traditional recruitment week. And we're going to start talking about what a traditional recruitment week is with a flyer that I made as way back in 2013. And this is sort of like some of the things that we will highlight as a traditional recruitment week that we're going to tell you some reasons you might want to modify them. So things like a theme, as you can see, this is Charlie Brown or a Peanuts theme, some specific events, relatively little Alpha Phi Omega focus in all of this. We're going to talk about those as we go, but wanted to start with the, Josh and I have also been in a place where we used the traditional recruitment week where we did these things. And so we say this because we're excited about the new ideas we have to offer you, but we also come from a place that we can learn from some of our experiences. So I wanted to start with that.
Thank you for this explosion to show that we truly are going to burst out of the traditional model today and talk about some of the ways we can do that. So now I can talk through just a few of the key reasons that you may want to consider modifying your recruitment week. So on the slide, I have 3 reasons. The first is to ensure that you're providing a holistic understanding of APO during recruitment. The key question here to consider is, do potential new members get a holistic understanding of APO through each and every recruitment event they attend, and every time they interact with the quote-unquote APO brand? So I'm a marketing manager, so I'm always thinking about brands. So every time the APO brand is out there, do people understand what that means? The reason you want to do this is so that your pledge program or your new member education program, whatever you call it, focuses on developing these potential new members that were already drawn to the value of APO, and that'll lead you to a higher retention versus the traditional model of just showing the principles and values one-on-one. The second reason is to focus the events on the value that APO provides. So we spent a lot of time in the first session today, if you were able to join, talking about the value of APO and coming up with what your value is. And so you want to make sure that the events that you have are focused on that value. Many chapters utilize themes, and like Megan had on the prior slide, a Charlie Brown theme. And I actually the other day found the t-shirt from that rush, which I actually wasn't at the school yet, but I still have the t-shirt from it, which is great, but it's not focused on the true value that APO provides. Consider if the theme actually works for you or if it limits you, and consider what a pledge week would look like without a theme or using the cardinal principles as your theme. Lastly, you may want to change your recruitment event to a recruitment week or month or whatever you choose to ensure that events accurately represent life as a brother. I remember that when I pledged, all the recruitment week events that I went to were focused on like free food and picnics. And I originally, as a pledge, was very disappointed to find out that there's not always free food and picnics during APO events, and it was just the 2 rush events that I happened to attend. And this could be a negative retention strategy. So you're bringing people into your organization on the premise of there's always free food and picnics going on, but you're not going to be able to fulfill that for them. So you'll likely have a better retention strategy if you ensure that all potential touch points before a member is in Alpha Phi Omega represents what life is as a brother. And of course, there's one final reason on the next slide that just underpins everything these days, that things we like to say are now more important than ever. And I think that's kind of an overused phrase at this point, but it's true that there's truly no organic interactions happening right now. And in order to get people into your organization, you have to get your name out and have people understand your core values. And the more you can do that, the better. So I have some key thought starters on how you can bring leadership, friendship, and service into all of your recruitment events. So I think starting to focus on planning events that are holistic in nature, and at a high level, we can think about what exactly does that planning process look like. So there's 4 key questions, and I think this was touched on in the first presentation today. For every event that you're going to have, think, have we thought about leadership? Have we thought about friendship? Have we thought about service? And have we thought about where they connect in that beautiful, like, little, I'm going to call it a Venn diagram. It's not a Venn diagram, that little trio of circles all together. Leadership, friendship, and service bound by a single tie, and make sure that all potential new members see them all tied up in a nice bow at the core intersection of why we exist. These are just some things to think about as we go into recruitment planning for the next semester or next term on campus. So with that, I have a few poll questions for you, and I don't know if we actually have the poll feature activated in Zoom or not. We do. So the first question is, of the 3 things I just talked about, which of these key themes is the biggest opportunity area for improvement for your chapter? So I see the poll now is up on my screen, so I assume it's up on yours as well. So just take a few moments to think about which of these is the biggest opportunity area. And I think there's a lot of overlap here, so I don't know that one will be outweighing the other. I guess, Marissa, once we have a quorum of answers, I think we can.
We're at about 75% voted and climbing. So take another few seconds to cast your vote, and then we will end polling.
All right, so it looks like focusing events on the value APO provides is the winner here with 43% of the vote. The other 2 not far behind. So I think as you go into your next term and as you start planning your recruitment, it's important to think about all of these themes, but there are great opportunity areas in all 3. And so for our next poll question, this is just a fun one. What is your favorite flavor of Starburst? And note there is only one correct answer, and I will judge all of you for choosing the wrong one. So I hope you guessed correctly. I will actually vote in this poll. I did not vote in the last one because it was the correct answer. How's it looking?
We have about 80% voted, so if you have not yet cast your vote, go ahead and do so now. We're going to end polling in a few seconds here.
Beautiful. So we have 50% who chose pink. That is the correct answer. To those of you who chose red or yellow, I totally disagree with your taste, but I will still continue to lead this lecture today. So with that, I'm going to pass it off to Megan, who's going to chat through some ongoing recruitment procedures and suggestions on how to alter the model.
Yeah, I'm a red Starburst fan myself, so.
Ooh, Megan, I don't think we can be friends anymore.
I know our collaboration is really gonna suffer after this, y'all. But thank you for having a little fun and loving the Starburst talk in the chat, as well as the on-topic discussion. So I'm going to talk about suggestions on how to alter the recruitment model. So first, we're going to start thinking about your next recruitment cycle. As you hopefully are well aware, recruitment plans are due by December 21st in the officer portal. You might have already turned yours in, or it might be already mostly written, or you might have some ideas. But regardless of where your plan is, whether it's that written plan you're turning in or just the plan that your chapter has talked about, there are still many ways that you can infuse some of these points that Josh hit on in the earlier part about some things to shift to from traditional recruitment. Lots of ways you can infuse those into your recruitment cycle, whatever phase it's at. And so moving forward, thinking about this next recruitment cycle and future ones, if events are already planned, there are opportunities to make them stronger. There are opportunities to include this holistic tie or practicing storytelling for those recruitment events. There's marketing and recruiting to be done throughout the semester. So even if you don't have some of this marketing around the holistic tie ready right when you start school again in January or whenever your next cycle starts, you could continue to market and recruit throughout the semester, as well as opportunities to connect with other organizations throughout the semester. Again, these are things that you could add in even if you have a plan, or add them in sort of like throughout the semester. But most importantly, if you have a prepared recruitment week, if you have prepared events, thinking about this thing that we've touched on already so much today, which is awesome, which is giving a holistic understanding of Alpha Phi Omega at every event, incorporating all three cardinal principles to every event, and thinking about that as a central piece of all of your recruitment activities. And so with that, we're going to move into a little bit of an activity, a group brainstorm, if you will. And this is a Troika consulting activity. I modified this from an organization called Liberating Structures. Definitely modified, but also want to give credit to them. And so we're going to start by thinking of what is an event you already have planned for your recruitment week that you need help changing or you want to help make more holistic. So if people who are willing to share will put a recruitment event that they already have planned that they want help making more holistic or better incorporating all three cardinal principles into, if you'll share those ideas into the chat, and then we'll work on this consulting part. Again, any events that you already have planned, or they don't have to be like planned out to the detail, but even if you just think like, oh, every semester, every quarter, we have a pancake event, a pancake making event. Looks like we're getting some awesome ones in there. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick sort of randomly one of these events, and then all the rest of us are going to be the consultants in this activity. So everyone who is not the person I picked to be our client will have 2 minutes to ask clarifying questions, either about what this event is, sort of like what they like about this event, any logistic questions that you feel important to ask. And then the rest of us, the consultants, will spend 5 minutes suggesting ideas and thoughts to make this event more holistic or to better represent APO's value. And during that time, when we're offering our consultant ideas, our client will not be allowed to talk. They will just have to listen. And then after those 5 minutes of us consulting, of us throwing out ideas and recommendations, we'll give the client 1 minute to sort of like summarize what they thought was helpful, what suggestions they hope to implement. And so I will pick our client, and looks like we have Alec with an ice cream social. I would love for him to be our client. And so the rest of you are now consultants, if you are everyone except Alec. And you can ask questions, anything you need clarification on before we give him our ideas in the next section. I will start the timer now.
And Megan, just to clarify, should these be in the chat questions or out loud questions?
Either or, whatever floats your boat.
Great.
Looks like we have one in the chat about how many people need to talk before the event ends, or how many people do brothers need to talk to?
So this is more of a, I guess it's towards the end of it where it's not necessarily a requirement. It's more of you've finished your recruitment events and this is just solidifying your meeting and interacting with the brothers before you really getting into the pledge process. So there's really no like actual meeting of the brothers requirement for that. But I mean, yeah, I guess it would be preferred that you probably talk to at least like 5 probably new brother. We have a fairly big chapter, so like maybe like 5 to 10. That's if it actually happens, if it's in person. Let's see. Besides ice cream, we have music playing. In the past, we've done a few team building activities with. There was one where I don't know if you've seen this before, but they'll have like this really long rope, and you cross it over. I think it's you cross it over. You have to share something about yourself, and then you pass it, and then in the end, it creates like this big knot of like kind of representing this is the value and personality that the entire chapter brings to the table. So things like that. I think there's a few games usually played too, and then everyone gets their invitation to pledge.
Awesome, that's perfectly at 2 minutes. So thank you for clarifying those things. I know we don't get a ton of clarification, but that's sort of the point, is we're gonna keep it moving quick. So thank you for sharing just a little bit about your ice cream social. Now, everyone else, all of our consultants, what are your ideas or thoughts to help make this event holistic, to help this event show the value of Alpha Phi Omega? What ideas do you have for Alec and his chapter?
If virtual, you could just have everyone bring their own ice cream. Like we've done that similar thing in some of my other organizations, like where we'll do a conversation cafe where everyone will have their own coffee.
I would like to chime in as well.
Go for it.
I think that another thing that he can do to sort of like, or that his chapter can do to exemplify the principles, is if it was hosted in person for any kind of reason, or if this was like, you know, after the pandemic, for future references, I guess they can do like little breakout tables, and they have like the ice cream there, and they have like a few brothers, and then they'll have like a sign that says, you know, leadership, friendship, and service, and then, you know, they can be like, we're here to talk about this specific subject about our organization, and like people like to have questions about specific sort of principles or views of the organization can kind of just like go to those tables and kind of like, and they'll can have like, one table might have the ice cream, another one might have toppings. I know that's kind of like, that will like, and then I guess the last table would have like even more toppings or more ice cream or something like that, or the cones or waffles or cups. So I feel like they can sort of like incorporate leadership, friendship, and service in like 3 different tables, and have like brothers that kind of like love those principles more than others. Well, that's not probably what I'm trying to say, but brothers that kind of like can represent those principles well and talk about them.
I really like that idea, Christian.
We also have some ideas in the chat about breaking out either in those separate tables or in online breakout rooms by ice cream flavor, and then even voting on a leader to speak about why it's the best flavor, sort of like a fun leadership game. sharing about their ice cream flavor, sharing what they like about topics. These are great ideas. Any other consultants? So that's everyone again on the call. Everyone else on the call want to speak about their ideas or thoughts to help this event be more holistic, so including leadership, friendship, service, and the tie that unites them, or just to better represent APO's value or value proposition. Any other ideas people have?
My chapter has done in the past a ice cream social where we also made dog toys to give to a local shelter, so you could also bring that in, like an actual little service event, into the ice cream social, so you have something to do during it.
Awesome. That's a really great way to bring in service. Any other ideas?
Repeat that.
Their chapter has a dog toy making service project that they could incorporate and do while they're having their ice cream social. Hopefully I summarized that well. We have about 1 more minute to get any of our last ideas and thoughts on how this ice cream social could better hit on the value proposition of Alpha Phi Omega or on all 3 cardinal principles. Any ideas people have? All right, it looks like our consultants have shared their big thoughts either by unmuting themselves or in the chat. So thanks everyone for participating. Now I'll hand it back over to Alec if you want to summarize some things you found helpful or what suggestions you hope to implement as you go back and reimagine or add things on to this event.
Megan, I definitely think that the tabling idea that Christian brought up is a great idea. And yes, there's definitely different ways to do that with having each table be a top, or you start with the bowl and the spoon one, and then you go to the. I really like that. And I definitely have brothers in mind who I know could pitch those ideas really well. And then even the Zoom ideas, if it's not looking good for that event to be able to be in person, I do think the Zoom got rooms based on flavors and having people vote on someone to argue that point. I think that's a fun thing to do. As for the dog toy making, my chapter actually already does that, Anna, and I think it's a really fun thing that a lot of people enjoy, and it's very easy and quick to do. So yes, I think that would be definitely really easy to integrate into the ice cream social if we had it in person.
Awesome. Again, perfect timing right at the minute mark. Great summary. Thanks again, everyone, for participating in this little brainstorm. I want to highlight that most events can be easily made more holistic, or to talk more about the value with just a little bit of thought, a little bit of brainstorming, either with people on this call, again, through using the collaborate function that we have accessible to y'all when we're at one of the roundtables, or back when you get with just your chapter to talk about these things. Some alteration recommendations that we have for you is going virtual and sort of on demand when you can. So things like virtual info sessions could be via social media, YouTube, something that can be a little bit more on demand as people are using them. So that's maybe about how you can focus less on lots of info sessions and more on something holistic, or to have a small bit of info at every session. Again, try something new. So whether it's having a new event that fits better into these holistic ideas, or having a new idea of combining ice cream and dog toys, mixing it up and trying something new in that way that you might have thought before, oh, we need 5 events, an ice cream one and a dog toy one will get us to 5. But this, trying something new and inviting your members to join in that, new ideas to recruit. And then flexibility, the name of the game. what does recruitment and pledging look like during COVID? How can you be more flexible but still provide an intentional space and a valuable experience? A little more on flexibility. There are so many ways to prepare for the semester ahead and give more opportunities for students to find out about Alpha Phi Omega, more opportunities for all of your events to be holistic. Some ideas that might work for your chapter are adding in more proactive conversations as your chapter plans or as your chapter talks through plans. So again, having just this question that we started our consulting activity with, this like, what can you do to make this event more holistic to better share APO's value, can be a great question that you can ask in every planning session. Adding more time to your traditional recruitment week can be another way to bust out of this model. Making it 3 weeks instead of 1 could give you time to try new things, and not being afraid to shift the pledge period if needed to accommodate those. And then trying to incorporate recruitment into all aspects of your chapter functions. So a great thing about this being more holistic, adding more value, is that once you start asking this question about your recruitment events, then you can also start asking this question about all of the service events you have planned. It's a great question because it works for any kind of event you're thinking of. Is this representing the cardinal principles? How could it better represent all 3? And the tie between them is a great way for you to continue to think about all of your events. And with that, we'll move on to ongoing recruitment procedures.
Awesome, thank you, Megan. So now we can chat through ongoing recruitment procedures. So specifically, I have 3 topics I want to cover. The first is preparing for recruitment. The second is ongoing recruitment and marketing. And the last is infusing leadership, friendship, and service throughout the recruitment event. So I feel like there's a common theme today about infusing LFS in everything. So we're going to keep talking about that. So to jump right in, I'll ask, how does your chapter prepare for recruitment? And I'll start here with 2 quotes. The first one I learned from my grandpa, and it's the 6 Ps. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance. You can kind of flip any of them around and it still works. And then the second quote I found when searching for the image of the first quote, and as a Ben Franklin quote, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. And I think these are super relevant and something that I take into consideration in my day-to-day life now as a full-time marketing person. And also I always try to do that after an APO and as a student as well. Some ways to prepare can be as follows. So first, APO elevator pitches, or your value-driven personal stories that were talked about earlier today. So you learned about these in the first session, but one thing to note here that I don't think was covered was we need to continuously evolve how we talk about APO and our story with APO based on the fact that we're in a global pandemic now and things are different. And I don't think it's still super relevant for us to be talking about APO in the pre-COVID days because it's just not the reality right now. So we need to figure out a way to sell ourselves on what our current value is for our campus community and what potential new members may find in that. And continue to remember to focus these on the conversation that you're having with the specific potential new member. The second thing is practice presentations. So I'll tell a little bit of a story from my home chapter. The chapter meeting before recruitment week, we would put on a little play in chapter, and we would do the do's and don'ts of recruitment. So first, recruitment committee would act out exactly what not to do during recruitment by doing a mock recruitment situation where they talk to a potential new member and they do everything wrong. They're super exclusive and cliquey, and they're not talking to the person, and they're just saying a bunch of weird stuff that's not related to APO at all. And they don't really sell the fraternity at all. They're just kind of having a side conversation and not including the potential new member at all. And then they go through it again based on the chapter's feedback on what they did wrong, and they correct everything they did and show good recruitment behaviors. So this is just a really simple way of practicing recruitment. And I know the session before this, there was an option to talk about recruitment preparation. So definitely take those things into mind as well. And lastly, I encourage chapters to set individual recruitment goals. You can set a baseline. Every brother must bring in at least 2 to 3 new members each recruitment period. And brothers can obviously do more than that. You could set a challenge for like small inexpensive prizes if you have budget for like little APO stickers or pens or something for the top 10 referrers each semester or each quarter, kind of like a member get member situation so that you have a great retention strategy. Ultimately, everyone in the chapter is responsible for recruitment, and it's not just on the recruitment chair, so this is a way to incentivize that. Now I have another thought starter question for you, which is how much time do you spend actively recruiting new members each semester? And you can just think about this for a sec, and I imagine your answer is probably less than 1 month, if I had to guess, and you are definitely not alone. I remember that when I was an active, we spent 1 week actively recruiting, we spent probably a week preparing, and then we spent the whole semester in the pledge program. So you're definitely not alone with that. And so now I'd like to talk through some ongoing recruitment procedures at a high level. And so think about this: if we only spend a quarter of our time recruiting, there's ample opportunity for chapters to focus more on recruitment on campus. So students are always seeking new opportunities. It's not just during the first week or second week of the semester or quarter. And also just taking into consideration the whole point about community being so important now. So there's great ways now that you can have an open and inclusive community by opening up your chapter's programming. So just some things to think about here, some ideas I have. Are there any signature programs that you host that you can open up? I have another story for my home chapter. We have an annual health fair in the middle of campus every fall. This year it was virtual, but most years it's right in the middle of campus. They do it right where everyone walks by to go to class, and they bring in various organizations that are focused on promoting healthy activities and public health. And this is always a huge awareness opportunity for the chapter to get new members on their list. And there are definitely ways for other chapters to do this as well. So if your chapter in regular times hosts like a large formal every spring or other large scale events that you can have +1s at. Are there smaller events that can be bring a friend opportunities? So if you're doing a service event, cleaning up a park, or doing a Netflix watch party, can you bring a +1 from outside the organization? And then are there some activities you can host as like a service to campus, for example, where you engage members outside of the fraternity by providing a service to them? So think pre-finals prep kits, Valentgrams, random acts of kindness, and things like that. So there's definitely opportunities to get your name out. Even without changing the way you do recruitment and recruitment week, you can still expand your opportunities to quote unquote recruit and get your name out there throughout the term. I also want to encourage you to think about ways to increase your campus presence. So on the next slide, we have a variety of different traditional methods of promoting Alpha Phi Omega, such as flyering or tabling. And these things are great, but given the state of campuses in the world right now, it's likely that some of these activities that you do don't get as much traction as they used to. So one thing you can do is consider pivoting to social media. And I believe later today, there'll be a session specifically on social media where you can learn a lot more about this. But with a small amount of effort, you can reach a really large population of your campus. You can post just regular social posts in different class year groups, different major groups, etc., on Facebook or whatever the kids use these days, I don't know. You can also consider paid ads on social media. So you likely have changed the way you're budgeting right now. And you don't have as many large scale events with food and other things like that. So if you have the budget, paid ads can be relatively inexpensive and go a long way at targeting members on your campus. So as you're considering COVID budget changes, you can consider putting funds towards social. I also always like the idea of using the campus newspaper as a way to promote your chapter. So if you have a newspaper on your campus or other kind of publication, having either articles written about your chapter and the activities or paying for ads in the newspaper could be great, as they likely have both digital and print formats. And lastly, consider making announcements in different classes or having brothers do shout outs in other organizations they're a part of, as this is a great way to give brothers really make them feel empowered to get new members in. And then the last point I'll make about ongoing recruitment and marketing is about keeping track of potential new members. And so I know that many chapters still use like literally a piece of paper where they fill out names at tabling events. And I will encourage you that this is not the most efficient method. And it's also not super COVID friendly. So you could consider making a Google form survey or something like that and have a QR code or a short link that a potential new member can scan or type into their phone and then fill out their info, their email, their name, their graduation year, all the information that you'll want to collect from them, and it'll automatically be compiled in a digital format. After it's created, you can also use it to track all the different touch points you have with that potential new member. So the events that they attend, the conversations they have with brothers, etc. I also definitely recommend any marketing emails you send out based on your list can be as personal as possible. When I was a rush chair, I took the time to literally write individual emails to every single person who attended a rush event. In my chapter, it was pretty large at the time, but it was worth the extra effort to say, hi, insert name, and you like inserted the name there, and say, it was great to meet you at this event, and you plug in the event and make them feel like you're really talking to them, as opposed to just mass emailing everyone with one email that doesn't feel personalized at all. I think personalization really is key. And it's something in the business world, when I do marketing, we always include our customers' names and subject lines and things like that in order to entice people to open it. People love seeing their name in print. So it's definitely a great way to get more engagement. With that, I want to pivot now to infusing LFS through recruitment. So here's this lovely diagram that you've all seen before today if you were in the first session. And it's really important to infuse LFS throughout any recruitment that you have. So continue to consider what that core value is that you provide to members of your campus community. For me in my chapter, like many people, I say I joined for the service, stayed for the friendships, and learned leadership along the way. And this was very much a common narrative a few years ago in my chapter. As you think about these elevator pitches or value pitches or whatever you want to call them, think about what that core value is that brothers feel right now, especially during COVID, and make sure that it's relevant for that. I think it may be a productive exercise for you to, in your chapter group chat or whatever you have to communicate with each other, have everyone share what that core value is in that one sentence of why they appreciate their membership in APO. And then once you have that figured out, and it likely will center around LFS, use that as a way to infuse this value into every event PNMs are present, whether it's a formal recruitment event or ongoing events that you invite outside members to. If the core value sounds anything like what I said mine was, it's likely going to be incorporating LFS into every event that PNMs are present. Show them that single tie that binds leadership, friendship, and service together. This will make sure that PNMs have a strong core understanding of what APO is and why they should join. And these events will be opportunities to develop new members throughout the year. So with that, I'd like to have a 30-second brainstorm with you now based on your Starburst colors. So most people will be answering the last question. All the correct people will. In the chat, if you all could type in the answer to one of these questions, so basically everything I just talked about, either one way you'll work with your chapter to practice recruitment beforehand next semester, one way you'll practice ongoing recruitment, one new marketing channel you use, or one way you can increase LF&S in recruiting together. So you can just type into the chat now and do like a quick brainstorm on this. While you guys are brainstorming, I see a few great ideas in the chat. So Moselle wrote in that alumni may be willing to fund incentives if chapters need assistance with that. So that's like on the member get member thing. So if you're doing it, every brother must bring in 2 new people and the top people get a prize. So alumni may be willing to help. So that's great. I see some stuff about practicing coming through, so that's great. Practice meet and greet events and breakout rooms. Behind the scenes video of preparing and planning, promoting on Instagram. Long-term displays around campus, new marketing channels like Instagram Q&A. Breakout rooms to discuss the do's and don'ts of recruiting. Ongoing recruitment even after the rush week. That's great. All right, it's definitely been more than 30 seconds. I didn't set a timer like Megan did. But if you want to continue typing stuff into the chat, you definitely can. But I just wanted to basically show here, look, we spent 30 seconds thinking about this. If you spend one committee meeting thinking about this, think of all the ideas you can come up with and ways that you can infuse some of these principles into your programming. There's no reason that you have to do the same thing every semester just because you always do it that way. And I think when I was an active, I continuously said that. I was like, this is what we do, and that's it. There's no changing it, but we definitely can change things if we want to. And so with that, I'm going to pass it on to Megan to introduce a new model of recruitment.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. We've just walked through some practical things. People had lots of ideas in the chat of some practical things you can do to incorporate these new ideas and ongoing recruitment into your chapter's plan. Many of these are components that you can jump into now, but we're going to shift thinking about a new model that you can start to consider moving toward in a semester or two, and that is rolling recruitment. And so rolling recruitment and pledging means that you add new members to your chapter in a rolling manner, meaning several waves throughout the semester rather than one recruitment per semester or quarter or year. It allows you to open membership to people when it works for them. It's an incredible opportunity to try something new. And you might see the slide and you might be really excited about it, or you might be a little trepidatious perhaps. This might seem a little ludicrous to you, but I want you to try it on like a hat. And so for the next 10, 15 minutes, just see how it feels, see how you might look into it, see how it might fit for your chapter. But then if it doesn't work either right now, just put that hat back on the shelf for a while. But while we're in this, I want you to really think about how it could work for you. Again, try it on like a hat. So rolling recruitment, again, this is adding new members to your chapter in a rolling manner. And with rolling recruitment, we float this idea of open events. So instead of having a full recruitment week every week or every month or however often these waves are coming in to get more people to join, consider how to make the events you already have regularly serve a recruitment purpose. And so if those events are open, if you're recruiting at those events, make sure that you're leading those open events, that you have potentially new people coming to you with value and intentionality. Again, circling back to this value statement when you're planning those open events, and making sure that they're holistic. So again, this like holistic value, or words we've said a lot today, but again, just like a service event with leadership development, ask if there is L and F in every service event, ask if there is F and S in every fellowship event. You get the idea, making sure that they're all present in the events that you're holding, and how you're taking the events that you already have and making them work for recruitment by making them holistic and values-based. So again, making this recruitment model work, making a rolling recruitment model work for y'all is reimagine how you're incorporating the 3 cardinal principles. Again, thinking about how there aren't just leadership events or fellowship events in your chapter program, in the same way that we've been talking about making sure there aren't just leadership or fellowship events in your recruitment week, but how can that be true for your entire chapter program? How can you change the role of the person leading recruitment? Again, if someone was leading a recruitment every single week for an entire semester or entire quarter, that would be probably exhausting. Maybe they could do it. Maybe they have better time management skills than me. But how do you take the role of the person leading recruitment from planning specific events to incorporated planning into every event and incorporating training into the chapter, and just helping this recruitment mindset sort of like be infused through all pieces as the role of your recruitment chair? How do you involve people in all parts who want to try something and develop as leaders? So again, if you are considering moving to this model, it's going to be a brave new step. There's going to be a lot of new things you'll have to try, even if you're considering just adding in aspects of this. So what are the opportunities to involve people who might not be in a named leadership position in this, and who are people that might have ideas that can fit into this session? Again, if you're thinking about a rolling recruitment model, tabling and info sessions are still important, but how are you infusing recruitment in all chapter functions? And even if your intake model isn't rolling, even if you're gonna think at the end of this hat of rolling recruitment doesn't fit right on my head right now, how are you focusing on value and always preparing for recruitment, always preparing to invite new people in, even if you're not actually inviting them in all of the time? And then we'll touch on implications of the pledging model, because again, if you are bringing in a recruitment class in more waves, that of course will have impacts on the pledging model. So during this, we invite you to focus on what's most important to get out of the pledging period. We've put together sort of like 5 pillars of pledging or the new member period. And that is knowledge of the fraternity, both on a chapter and national level, understanding of leadership, friendship, and service, skill set development. So if your pledges typically plan a service project, getting to plan that service project is developing a skill for them. Connection to the chapter and community within the pledge class. So how can you modify your pledge requirements, your pledge semester? How can you make the pledge standards and programs you typically have work in a rolling model while upholding these 5 things that we think are really important to the outcomes of the pledging process. And this is a big question. If you can answer it in this session, awesome. But I think most of us need lots of time to think about this. And so as a representative of the subcommittee working on pledged new member education, we're working on more details, more resources, and recommendations to come to you about what this could look like in a rolling pledge model. So I feel like we just sped through about a million things. Hopefully you enjoyed some of our ideas on busting out of a traditional recruitment model, whether that's in a small way, like focusing on adding leadership and service into your fellowship events in your next recruitment cycle, or thinking about these ideas of a bigger change to rolling recruitment. We hope that you got something out of that and would love a little bit of time for y'all to submit your learning. So we're going to do a little 3-2-1 activity. So if you'll write down, or you could type it out, 3 things you learned in this session, 2 questions you still have about the things we talked about, and 1 thing you want to try next semester or quarter. So 3 things you learned, 2 things you still have questions about, and 1 thing you want to try this semester. If you will write that down wherever you're personally keeping notes, personally reflecting. And then I invite you to share just one of these 6 things that you wrote down in the chat. So pick the one that you most want to share, the one you want to share with us in the chat. Again, I'll give you about like a minute and a half of quiet time, and then we'll get back to talking. 3 things you learned, 2 things you still have questions about, and 1 thing you want to try next semester. Seeing some great things people learned and things they want to try coming in the chat. All right, that ends our official time for reflection. Of course, keep reflecting, keep cementing the things you learned as you go, but hope that you enjoyed thinking through all of the things we talked over in this session, and I will hand it back over to Josh.
Mute. Awesome. Thanks, Megan. So just to wrap up the key ideas that we presented through today, first is know the core strategies that work for any recruitment event. So things that are holistic and value-driven are the keys. Training and practice are golden, as we've talked about. Know your value and share it. And flexibility and intentionality make all the difference. And I encourage you, if you're looking for more content, to join the Innovative LFS Events Roundtable, which will be right after this. I also do want to shout out that at the end of the day today, there'll be a survey, so please fill it out. There it is on the thank you slide. So please do fill out the conference survey. Also want to remind you that the recruitment plans, Megan, do you already say that? Okay, cool. Recruitment plans are due the 21st into the officer portal, and we have resources available from the national office that were shared in the chat, but you can also find them on the national website. So thank you guys for your time today, and I think we have a few minutes before the next session. Make sure to fill out in the Doodle form where you want to be put into next so that Marissa has an easier job moving people to different breakout rooms. And so thank you guys.
Thanks, Phil. If you have any specific questions for Josh and I, you can send us an individual chat, but thanks for joining us.